Thanks for joining all our attendees. And my name is Andre Duhaney, and I am the product owner for CaseWare Analytics. And we have developed a P-card and T&E solution that pretty much goes through and identifies exceptions and alerts within your T&E and P-card programs. And today we just want to go through 7 simple steps that will help you to grow your Concur implementation. So just bear with me for about 15 to 20 minutes while I take you through these pretty simple steps. So first up, let's talk a little bit about the Concur workflow. What is it that you're trying to do with your Concur implementation? The main objective for purchasing such a travel and entertainment management solution is to simplify the whole T&E process or P-card process. So an employee travels to a country for some business purposes, they make some purchases, they purchase lunch and so on and so forth, they're booking their flights. How easy is it for them to get all of this approved? With a system like Concur, it's within minutes that as an employee submits their expenses that it can get approved, and all that it saves a lot of time and persons can get reimbursed. So it's a very simple process. So the main aim behind all of this is to get away from the traditional procure-to-pay scenarios where it will take a longer time for expenses to get approved, and also you'll probably find a lot of non-compliance issues within such processes. So the Concur workflow Concur system pretty much manages all of this. So once you've gotten your Concur management system off the ground, or your T&E program, one of the objectives is to grow the adoption, or to increase the number of persons or employees that are using the cards, so that you can have the benefits or to reduce the expenses that are related to the traditional procurement process. So as you continue to grow from, let's say, 100 to 1,000 to thousands of employees being enrolled in this program, there are exceptions or compliance challenges that you may come across. So I'll just touch on a couple of them briefly. There are a number of them out there, but some common ones are out of policy purchases. So someone purchasing alcohol when the company policy says that the corporate card should not be used for such a purchase. Others include duplicate payments. 2 employees go out for lunch or for a meeting with a prospect, and both employees submit the same expense. Or also, you might find that there are duplicate payments across your P cards as well as AP, and we'll touch a little bit more on that later on. Another one is purchases from unapproved vendors. And this is a big one for a lot of companies, because you have these arrangements with your merchants or suppliers to allow you to gain rebates or kickbacks. So you want to ensure that your employees are using the preferred vendors. So that's something that you'll have to look at. So the reason for reviewing your expenses or your reports or P-card purchases is to identify those sorts of anomalies. So this is just a simple process here, and I'm just showing it to you at this moment, and then we'll walk a little bit through the steps further on. So when you do the analysis and you generate those exceptions and alerts, what are you going to do with them? How are you going to resolve them? All right, So let's talk about some of the data elements that you can include in your analysis. First up, we can include transactions, credit card transactions from your banks, and this can come straight through the Concur connector that we provide. CaseWare provides a Concur connector that connects to Concur. It's a seamless integration, and it extracts all the expense reports, and we can do further analysis to identify some of those non-compliant purchases and a whole host of other non-compliance issues. So we can start by looking at the bank, the credit card info that is coming through Concur, because within Concur, you can actually set up the credit cards, and as persons make purchases, those transactions will be there, and employees can take those transactions and to create their expenses. So we would start off with that. We would look at the MCC codes, the MCC groups as well, to identify those out of policy purchases. Because with the MCC codes, that can tell you, what group are they purchasing from, or what sort of company they're purchasing from. Another interesting piece of it is including HR and AP data. And you may be wondering, why would you want to include these data sources into your travel and entertainment expense management analysis or P-card analysis? But it's to remove those blind spots. It's like driving on the highway and you're looking to switch lanes, but you're uncertain. Within your T&E program, you also want to have that level of certainty that the policies are not being breached. So if you want to remove some of those blind spots, you want to include different data sources. And two of the common ones are HR and AP data. So when we talk about HR data, why do you want to look at the HR data? Let's say, for instance, an employee got fired or relieved of their duties. Did the department take the card or disable the card for that employee, or does that employee still have access? So we're going to be looking at purchases done by an employee that was fired or relieved. So they're no longer a part of that employee file. So we go through and you look at the transactions to see if that situation is going on. So that's very important. Another one is an employee on vacation while they're using their cards. It could be an honest mistake. Somebody might have reached for their personal card, and being in a rush, they didn't realize that they actually took out the company card. So these are some of the things that you can identify by incorporating HR data within your analysis, to remove some of those blind spots. Then you look at AP data. How can you incorporate this into your analysis? You can look at duplicates across P cards and AP, and we see that a lot. Very important. Duplicate payments, it's a very big issue when it comes on to procure to pay, T&E and P cards. So we'll need to incorporate that data to identify any duplicates across P card and invoice. So as I mentioned in a couple of earlier steps, so we're at step 5, we're at remediating those exceptions. And I touched a little bit on this earlier on. How do you remediate these issues or exceptions so that they don't reoccur, so that you've stopped the problem, the bleeding? Because remember, the aim of all of this is to ensure that there aren't any leakages. All right, so the exceptions get generated. from the analysis. You can have a simple workflow with a number of persons involved in that workflow. And what I've seen is that not the compliance departments, have between 2 to 5 persons working within those departments. Larger organizations may have, up to 7, 10 persons working in those departments. However, with the volume of transactions or exceptions being generated, excuse me, you need to have a proper workflow put in place. So with this sort of workflow, what you can do, as the exceptions come in, you can assign them to persons for revision or investigation. You could assign them to a group of persons, and then persons could pick them off the queue and work on them. Persons could, on the workflow, you could include something in the workflow to say, send this exception to the card holder to find out the reason behind such a purchase. You could actually escalate exceptions or alerts to a supervisor. That's the sort of flexibility that an automated workflow will give you. The most important thing, I think, with this sort of workflow is to get to the root cause of the exceptions. You cannot resolve the underlying issues within your program if you do not know the root cause. So, is it a training issue? So is it just that you have good employees, but there's some purchasing, you've realized that there are some alerts, but it was just some honest mistakes, like the person who was on vacation, but they reached for their card and they pulled out the company card instead of their personal card. So you see, as I said before, is there a need for additional training? How are we onboarding the employees into, or enrolling the employees into this program? We need to beef up our training to highlight or outline the policies within the program. So is it a personal purchases problem? Is it an abuse? So these are some of the flags that you will have to make sure that are checked as you go through the resolution process to resolve all of these items. So as you sit down and you are analyzing or investigating these exceptions, you should mark them, highlight the root causes. Based on the comments that are coming back from the cardholders, you'll have a good understanding of where the problems are within the program. So you got all of that information coming back. But at a glance, as a P-cards or T&E manager, you get asked some questions when you go to a board meeting. So for instance, what's the spend? What's the ratio of spend versus the number of exceptions that we are seeing? What's the rate of adoption? Which departments are spending the most, or in which departments are we seeing the most exceptions? These are good questions, and the board members, they have all right to ask these questions. So to make this easy for you, or to provide all these answers, you can simply incorporate dashboards or data visualizations within your program, within your process. And this will help you to answer all of these questions. There are also dashboards that highlight root causes. So it tells you, are these exceptions that we're seeing, are they false positives? Are they a result of personal purchases or misuse and abuse? And so you can address those issues. It also highlights the top abusing departments and employees. So you can look at employees that are spending, they look at their spending pattern within these dashboards. Are they above the threshold, or are they below the threshold? Are persons repaying their personal purchases? Are they repaying the company for all those purchases that were flagged as personal purchases? These are some of the insights that you can gain through incorporating data visualization within your T&E program. So we'll move on to step 7, the last step, and this involves incorporating data from your merchants, from your card merchants. And this part is quite, important. I know. So what I'm talking about here is the level 3 data most of all. This tells you the actual line items that were purchased. So for example, the Marriotts, they are one of your accepted vendors. So off the bat, you look at that expense and you're saying that this is okay, there's no problem with it. Because we know that the employee was traveling and that's the hotel that we had booked for them. But what about the purchases? What about the finer details? So if the merchants have all this information available, I am imploring you to include this within your process, within your review process. And with all of this, with this system, with the CaseWare monitor system that we have and the Concur connector, it can tap into all of these systems and extract the data so that it's all included within the analysis. So in summary, I'm going to just summarize the main points. So the CaseWare connector, Concur connector, it integrates with the Concur expense management system. It's a seamless integration. You can schedule the extracts on a monthly, weekly, or daily basis. Maybe you want to do it on a weekly basis to have some flexibility. And there's no data dumps involved in this. It's just a straight connection. And as you know, we are a Concur, or a certified Concur partner. So we had to go through rigorous development process to ensure that it met all the required security rules and regulations. So we can monitor, with this platform, we can monitor data from any source, web services such as, Concur, banking platforms. So you saw we're pulling the credit card data, the merchant's data, any other apps. If you have other files that you're using to track certain particular data elements, then we can also, that is pertinent to the analysis, that we can also include that in the analysis to make sure that we remove all those blind spots. We also look at data quality, because the alerts are as good or as meaningful as the quality of the data. So we have to ensure before we embark on such an analysis, to ensure that the quality of the data is up to par, is of a certain standard, or the alerts or exceptions that you are getting from the process, will not be trustworthy. So within our process, we do data quality. And most of all, we're here to detect those outliers, those exceptions, and also to present to you those trends. So at a glance, you can see how your program is doing. What is the adoption rate? What is the rate of exceptions versus the rate of spend over a particular time period, so that you have all the answers for your stakeholders. So that's it in summary. And lastly, we have the workflows. So how do you remediate the exceptions after they have been generated? So, we have workflows and case management. For example, if you see that a particular cardholder is involved in a lot of abuse or personal purchases, maybe you want to group all of those exceptions together and then take a closer look at what is going on there. So it's like creating a case for that particular person, so you can do some further investigation.